Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio today, I have with me a special gentleman that I had just recently encountered. Got a chance to meet this brother, and we made some moves to get him on the show because he has a powerful story to tell. He is a motivational speaker, he is an advocate, he is an author. This man is doing a lot of things, and he's not just doing it locally, he's doing it internationally. And he's taking time out of a very busy schedule to be with us today, to just share a little bit of his story, to be of encouragement, to empower some people. I promise you, you're going to be blessed when you hear what this young man has to share with us. So without any further delay, let me introduce to you, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Fletcher Cleaves. My
What's going
brother,
on,
thank you for
everybody?
being here. All
Thank you for
right.
having me. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. And again, I know you're a busy man and making moves, doing your thing. So anytime you take out time to be a part of this, I certainly do appreciate that. I don't want to take that lightly at all. So before we get jumping into everything that we're going to talk about today, I do want to, of course, give you an opportunity to just share a little bit about yourself with the audience. You know, where you're from, what you do, anything that you'd like to share. Just kind of give people a little flavor of who Fletcher Cleaves is.
Absolutely, yes. Fletcher Cleaves, born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, M Town. All my Memphis Mid South people out there, gotta represent, gotta represent. And played football or plays all sports growing up, and was blessed enough to receive a football scholarship. And I'm pretty sure we're gonna dive into it in depth, but I'm just giving a high level overview. And unfortunately, during my tenure in my freshman year of college, I was involved in a car crash, which left me a quadriplegic. The car crash was caused by a lady texting and driving, not paying attention. And throughout my life, it's just me enduring that journey of being a collegiate athlete to now becoming a quadriplegic and, going back to college and moving out on my own and just figuring out life as a new disabled person. And I've been blessed enough to travel the seven seas and travel from country to country and spreading my message and my story and in the hopes to inspire and elevate others' lives.
Awesome, awesome, my brother. And by the grace of God, we want to, of course, acknowledge him for just allowing you to survive what you went through. And like you said, you're going to go into it a little bit further as we delve more into the show. But I'm just thankful that
Mhm.
God kept you here, and that wasn't by while you were in an accident. You being kept here was not an accident because God
I
was still
firmly
had
believe it.
plans for you. He had a purpose. He had a calling on your life. And just as with any journey and any obstacles of life that we go through, we never know exactly how it's going to play out, but God never makes mistakes. So we know that He has something special in mind for you. So I'm excited to hear your story a little bit more. So as we delve into this a little bit more about you, if you would, I know you said you're from Memphis, representing from Memphis.
Mhm.
Some of our listeners may not be familiar with Memphis. And so if you would just kind of take us back to your childhood, what was that like growing up in Memphis? Fond memories that you might have about growing up, as well as if there was any specific challenges that you had to deal with while growing up in Memphis. Please kind of give us a backdrop of what that was like.
Yeah, absolutely. So, born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, it was hot. Number one, I remember that for sure. I was an outside kid, always outside on my bike, on my whatever my scooter, walking around in the neighborhood, whatever the case may be. Dodgeball, basketball. I was an outside kid after school care, but I was blessed enough to be raised in a two-parent household. So I had a mother figure and a father figure to take care of me, love me, do all the things to teach me what it's like to be raised in a two-parents household. And we stayed in, I wouldn't say the hood, but just like, a particular part of Memphis, so to speak. And then in the 1999, I was in third grade. We moved to the suburbs. So now when we go to the suburbs, I'm in the third grade, and I'm one of five black kids in the whole school. And of course, I'm the only black kid in my class. So that brought some whole different challenges. We're going to like an inner city school to being shipped to the suburbs and just moving and getting used to it, not being from that area, so to speak. Because I remember one of the first times I got in trouble. So in inner city, we call it checking. I don't know what y'all may call it, but we talk about each other, but as a endearment of friendship, it's not like a bad thing. It's
Right.
like, man, shut up, why your jeans so tight? Your mom must got you dressed this morning, just cracking on each other, man, leave me alone. You stink, just kids being kids. And I did that in the suburbs. That I got suspended immediately for bullying. I
Wow.
was like, I didn't even do nothing. I was like, Fletcher, you can't be going around talking about people's mothers. I was like, I didn't say his mother. I was just like, dude, your mama's got you dressed. That don't even go together, something like that, and like the little boy started crying, and I really got in trouble. I was like,
Wow.
so it was just shows the different type of environments and different type of upbringings. But I didn't let that stop me. I adapted, of course, and I was able to excel in school, excel in extracurricular activity, and but I still was, a boy at heart. So I still was throwing dirt clogs and playing baseball and breaking windows and ding dong ditching and just having fun throughout. Just trying to be a kid, just growing up, just trying to be a kid, enjoying my childhood. But growing up in Memphis, I said, I know everybody has the saying, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. But in Memphis, just the type of city that has turned into and type of city it was. If you can make it here and adapt here, you can make it anywhere.
Mhm. And yeah, a lot of people, like you said, don't, we commonly do say that about our respective, inner city lifestyles for those of us who grew up, like I said, you from Memphis, me from Chicago. I
Mm-hmm.
got friends from other, inner city neighborhoods. And like you said, it's a different type of life. But I think the only downside, I guess, or I should say, one of the downsides, unfortunately, is the way the media portrays inner city life. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
is almost as if like it's nothing is good about it, and that's just not true. We do still have good times, fun times. A lot of times the neighborhoods, will have families around that just kind of people know who you are, and they're checking out and looking out for you, and it's just a good vibe. Maybe economically it's not always the great situation, and sometimes, of course, you got to deal with things like crime and drugs and that nature, and that's not an easy task to deal with either. Just avoiding those pitfalls. So it's always good to see a young man like yourself be able to navigate through that inner city life and kind of defy the odds of the stereotype and excelled in
Mm-hmm.
school and in sports and things of that nature. So everything
Yeah,
everything about the quote unquote hood is not all bad, and everybody that lives in it isn't automatically destined for defeat. There are some folks who come up out of that situation and are
for
are,
sure.
are smart. They're educated. They're successful in life, and they're doing big and great and wondrous things. So, and you're just an example of
Absolutely.
that. So
And
absolutely.
like I said, we moved out when I was in the third grade, so I didn't stay too long. But I tell people all the time, I went to school in the suburbs, but my summers were spent in my grandmama's house.
Hmm.
Because my mom and them really couldn't afford summer camp at some years or after school care. So, just hanging out in the summer, in the inner city was
Hmm.
still lessons within itself. But like you said, it's not all bad how the media portrays it. It's so dangerous. But honestly, how you said that, like drugs and things of that nature, it kind of taught you how to recognize different situations at an early
Hmm.
age. Like, something ain't right with Mr. Johnson. Yeah, you don't seem right. Like he be itching all the time. Something ain't right.
Right.
Yeah, so it just taught you how to recognize different situations and when at a young age. And I think that transition to when I got, of course, in high school and college and things of that nature, I was like, something ain't right up in here.
Plus, I think too, as an African American kid who has an opportunity to, like I said, go to the suburbs and part of that experience, of course, for a lot of us who experience that is, we may end up being at schools like you were, where you're one of the few, of students that look like you. And
Hmm.
so I think sometimes that also helps to boost your confidence and letting you know that, hey, again, I'm going back to how media portrays things like that we're not able to excel in the classroom in comparison to our Caucasian
Exactly.
counterparts. But then when you know that, hey, while it may not be many of me, people look like me in that classroom and you're still dominating academically, it gives you another layer of confidence that, hey, I can hang with everybody
Anybody.
regardless of
Exactly.
what their skin color is. Don't tell me that I just can't hang, or that this school somehow is going to be too much for me to handle because I'm used to perhaps the inner city school with less resources and less academic standards, if you will. So that's not always a bad thing, and I'm thankful for your parents were able to try to create a better life for you, and you
Hmm.
still had an opportunity, as you said, to have those summers, even though the reason why you had to spend the summers back with family, maybe due to financial reasons for daycare and, summer camps
Hmm.
and all that, still, you were still able to strike that balance between, I'm still identifying with my people and where I
Absolutely.
come from, but I'm also being protected and safe, if you will, from some of the
Absolutely. Yeah,
nonsense of the streets.
we went over there every Sunday. We went on my great grandmother's house every Sunday, and she
Hmm.
would cook green like, every Sunday. That's what was a Sunday routine. Didn't even have to ask what we
Yeah,
was doing on Sundays.
that's
And but like
awesome,
I said,
man.
I was fueled by competition. So when when Johnny got A and I got a B minus, I'm like, well, I get a B minus. Like, so I got to figure out
Mm-hmm.
what I need to do. Because my parents, they told me, it was like, son, you're not only representing for us, even though I might not have understood at the time, but older, I get it. Like, you're the only black kid in the whole third grade. So they looking at you, it's extremely strenuous. So you can't,
Mm-hmm.
not only you got to do what's necessary, you got to go excel because as soon as you mess up, as soon as you make an F, it's going to be like, I told you he couldn't do it.
Right, right. Well, as you saw, as soon as you cracked a joke on somebody, you got
Exactly.
suspended.
I got suspended. I'm like, what I do?
Like I said, you didn't mean any harm about it. It's just what playful things
Well,
the kids did. But I mean,
mhm.
and not to make any light about bullying. Bullying is a legit deal these days. It's just that in these days and times, what bullying is perceived to be as, say, back in the day, especially when I was a kid, it just the way
Wasn't
it
the
was
same.
defined is it was so much different, and just
Absolutely.
so that's awesome, man. I love to hear that your story and Memphis life, and that gave me a real good picture of what that was
Mhm.
like for you. So, as we're moving along in this journey of life, and I
Mhm.
tell this to people all the time, you live long enough, there will come moments and times where something hits, comes across your path that just is a little bit different. That of all the things that you've overcome, challenges that you face, that every now and then God allows for an experience or a situation to come our way that when it hits us, we're like, man, this is a little bit heavier than I had anticipated. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it through this. This is a little bit difficult, and this is where I know for you in particular, you had such a moment. I mean, I'm sure you've had multiple moments like,
Mhm.
throughout life, but you have a particular moment that you're going to share with us that was definitely a game changer for you. So if you would take us back to that moment in time in your life, what was going on prior to this moment, but then, walk us through that journey that you went through, and how you were actually able to just navigate through what you had to deal with. Please
Mhm.
recap that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, growing up in a two-parent household, I really didn't have a whole lot of responsibility. I was blessed enough. My parents took care of me. I had three responsibilities at this moment in my life. It was school, football, girls. That was my three only responsibilities I had in life. So long as I, did well in school and did well on the field, the third one gonna take care of itself. It's not gonna be too hard. But then this boulder comes out of nowhere, and this is by far the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with. And with that being said, it was leaving practice one day. It was September 10th, 2009. My roommate and I, Dane Mullins, it's the first NFL game of the season, and we get out of study hall and we go back to the room and shower, change clothes, finna hit the UC, just hang out, joke around. And I'm like, Dane, the game comes on today. Let's go to Buffalo Wild Wings. He was like, man, Fletch, I really don't feel like it. I don't want to. He's an introvert. And I'm an extrovert. Like I always want to be I want to be what everybody at. Ooh, what other people doing down there? I want to be in the mix of it. I want everybody to know my name. I'm an extrovert. I want to say hello. Just girls walking by, how you doing, sweetheart? Just talking. But that's not my. But that's the why we got along so well because we were just extremely opposite. And I was like, "Come on, dude, let's go." He was like, "All right, Fletch, I'll go." So we go drive to Buffalo Wild Wings. We get there, and of course they're like a 2 hour wait. It's the first game of the season. So we was like, "Man, let's just get our food to go and watch it in the UC." He was like, "All right, cool." So we get the wings to go, put them in the back seat, put my seatbelt on. Same routine I've done 100 times. On the way back to the dorm, we're sitting there talking, just man, the wings gonna be so good. Who can think gonna win tonight? Whatever the case may be. And there's this lady coming straight towards us. She's not paying attention to the road. She's looking down, texting or messing with something or not. She's not looking at the road. So she crosses over the double yellow line, and I see her coming. I swerved to miss her, and I just jerked it too hard, and I spun out of control, hit a guardrail, and once we hit that guardrail, we start flipping into an embankment where we rolled a couple times, and throughout that process of rolling, the roof caved in and broke my neck in two places, and I was paralyzed and knocked unconscious immediately. And Dane was ejected from the vehicle, and he had to endure his own trials and tribulations, and the things that he had went through being ejected from the vehicle because he was partially ejected. And throughout the rolling, it kind of threw him out, but the car ended up landing on top of his arm. So his arm was stuck, and just with the adrenaline, he just and pulled it out. But not knowing when he pulled his arm out, he literally ripped his arm apart, so to
Oh.
speak. And he said, and I asked him like, did it didn't hurt? He was like, nah, it didn't hurt. He's like, I remember it didn't hurt. It didn't start hurting until I saw it. Once I saw it, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, "How'd you see it?" He was like, "Well, I bent down to call your name." I was like, "Fletch." He was standing up. He was like, "Fletch, Fletch." I was trapped in the car. He said, "When I put my arm on top of the car to bend down, the moonlight hit my arm, and I saw it." And he was like, "Ah," like he just, he
Mm-hmm.
said he blacked out, so to speak. And so he calls my name. He wakes me up. He ends up flagging down a security guard that's patrolling because it happens in the parking lot of a church. So there's a
Mm.
security guard in a go kart, just riding around, making sure nobody doing nothing. And he flags her down. He calls 911 to come get us out the car or get me out the car. Dane's already in the parking lot. And, they put me in the back of the ambulance, and I knew something was wrong because the EMT, she says, "I want you to move your right leg." I said, "Okay." And she says, "Move your right leg." I said, "I did." She said, "All right." She says, "Move your left leg." I said, "All right." She says, "Move your left leg." I said, "I did." She says, "Okay." And because I wasn't able to get out of the car, I thought my legs were broken. Because, you don't automatically think that you're paralyzed. I'm like, "Oh, my legs must be broken because I can't move them." And I was like, "But it doesn't hurt." That's weird. And then she's like, "Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you might be paralyzed, but we're gonna run some more tests." And that's when it kind of hit me because playing football, the worst injury you can have is becoming paralyzed, where you get a hit on the field and nobody moves and you can't move, and from the neck down, and you're on the ventilator for the rest of your life and all this stuff. So when she said that, I was like, I immediately reverted back to all the people I had seen on TV that suffered a spinal cord injury on through playing football because that's all I knew. I mean, I'm pretty sure people had car accidents, but for the most part, all the spinal cord injuries I've seen were from football. And those people really couldn't talk. They were unconscious. They were in a coma. And she was like, "You might be paralyzed." And I was like, "I can't be paralyzed because I'm talking." Like I don't get
Right.
it. It doesn't make any sense. Like I don't hurt. I feel fine. I'm answering all your questions because they did the "Where are you? Do you know your name? You know what today's date is? What happened? All that stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, Fletcher Cleaves is. I don't know what to." I was like, "I'm in Jackson, Tennessee. Today's Thursday." And she was like, "Yep, yep, yep." All this, whatever day it was. And I'm like, I just remember it was September 10th. I really don't remember what day it was. Now that I'm thinking about it, but I'm answering at the time all the questions correctly. And she said that, and I knew it was about to be, a difficult journey ahead of me.
Wow. I mean, just first off, again, just thank to God that in the midst of all that, for both you and your friend,
Mm-hmm.
that you all were able to even, come up out of that accident. I also find it, and I don't know if you perhaps you have thought about this. I also find it interesting that you said you ultimately landed in a church parking lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just thinking, of all the places that in
Exactly.
rolling and flipping, in this car and in the commotion of it all, you land in a church parking lot. Is that, some people listening to this may say, okay, Joe, you're reaching. But I beg to differ. I don't think you landed
Nah, I
in a
believe
church
it.
parking lot on accident or by just happenstance. I believe you landed in that church parking lot on purpose,
Mm,
for a purpose. And so now
I agree.
you go to the hospital and everything is I'm assuming at some point they officially say yes, you are in fact paralyzed. What what's going through your mind once you know that this is official? Like I'm not, the doctors aren't confused or anything. The tests have been
Mhm.
run. This is my new reality. Just moments ago, I was just planning on having a good time to watch the game, and now this whole thing has just flipped my whole world around. There goes football. There goes, yeah, just everything that you thought was,
Mhm.
considered to be normal. Now this is a new normal for you. What's playing out in your mind, and how are you processing all of this?
So when it came out, I remember my first thought was, I'm not gonna be able to go to practice in the morning because I really,
Mm,
like I said, I didn't have any. I wasn't worried about how I'm gonna pay the bills. I wasn't worried about all this stuff. My three responsibility was school, football, girls. So I was like, can I? The most important thing in my life, besides family, friends, of course, all that stuff, with school and football. And I'm like, well, I can't play football anymore. Now what am I going to do? Now who am I going to be identified as? Because I've always been, oh, Fletcher, the guy who plays football. Oh yeah, the
mm-hmm.
football player. Oh yeah, the guy that scores a touchdown. I've always been associated with playing football, but now that I won't be associated with that anymore, I'm like, who will I become? Like, what am I now? And but not knowing that football was the least of my worries. Like, dude, you're gonna have a whole different journey ahead of you for the next couple of years, and
Mm-hmm.
also suffering sports injuries. is always a timeline associated with your injury. You break an ankle, you'll be all right in 6 weeks. You'll be back to normal, do rehab. You bruised thigh, you'll be all right in 3 weeks. Torn ACL, you'll be all right in 6 months. There's always timelines associated with this. So my first thing was, I'm paralyzed. What's my timeline? And it was like, we can't tell you. There is no, it's 6 months. There's no 10 years. We've seen people who are sustain this injury for the rest of their life. But we've also seen people 6 years from now, be able to move. Not You'll never be able to walk normally again, but with a cane or assistance, we've seen those type of situations. So we can't say, and
Mm-hmm.
not having that definite, it will be okay in a certain amount of time answer, kind of hit me hard, knowing like I don't know when this is going to be over. But I chose to not have a pity party, and I chose to overcome it because I had been faced with always being told I couldn't do things from being a smaller athlete, from being one of the few black kids in my school, from being, undersized in just all my sports. Just, you'll never, plus you don't want to play high school football. You're too small. You won't start as a, in varsity. You won't get a scholarship. You won't start as a true freshman. All these no's I had been told my entire life just prepared me for this moment to overcome the biggest obstacle I've ever encountered.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I want to build on this.
Hmm.
As you're now facing the reality of being a quadriplegic and having to go through this recovery period, I'm curious to hear what your take is as far as what was the healing process like for you. I know, of course, that I can only imagine, I should say, the level of physical, matters that you had to go through in terms of rehab and just learning how to do things differently now because of this. So you please, of course, you can share about that. But I'm also curious to know healing from the standpoint of mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. Where were you at, in your headspace as far as those things were concerned? And what was the turning point for you that said, okay, this is my reality, and now this is what I'm getting ready to do with it now that I'm here? What was, kind of walk us through that healing journey for yourself?
Yeah, so starting with the physical, because I played sports my entire life, my body going through physical strains was never. This is not new to me. My body's been through, 2 a day workouts, broken ankle. Like I've been through physically hard situations, and the mental can stack on top of that because I've had to push myself past exertion with running on the field or running in track or lifting weights and telling myself, keep going, Fletch, keep going, keep going, keep going. So I was already mentally tough as well, but dealing with this, it didn't really, I didn't really have a pity party or any depression or any mental discrepancy, so to speak, because I was always mentally strong anyway. So I just looked it in the mirror, or I spoke to my inner being. I was like, all right, Fletch, this is what it is. This is what they said. Now, how are you going to overcome it? How are you going to not let this be the end of your story? How are you going to not let this be the end so say all? Like, remember the guy that played football? Yeah, he was in a car accident, right? Yeah, whatever happened to him? Oh no, never heard from him again. So I didn't want that to be like that was the end of my journey. So I just faced it head on as I did every other problem, put it in front of me. And, I think Jordan said it one time, when you're faced with a wall or a brick wall, either you're going to have to go over it, through it, or around it. But somehow you got to get past it. And that's exactly how I thought. I was like, am I going to go through it, over it, or around it? And I just chose to just have that same mental toughness that I had been dealt with my entire life, and just get over it, get through it. I know a lot of people aren't as blessed as I am to have the support system I've had, or also not have the type of mindset that I have. But to those people, I say that it's never an end of the story. As long as you have breath in your body, as long as you wake up every morning, your story's not over yet. And that's exactly how I feel. I start my day off with positivity, and I like to just think about what I can do versus what I can't do, and just face every obstacle head on.
I love that. Love that. That's a great attitude to have, a great approach to have, and it just speaks volumes to who you are as a person. To because everybody can't endure what you've gone through and have such an upbeat outlook and perspective about it. So
Mm-hmm.
I definitely much respect for that. So I mentioned at the top of the show that you are a speaker, you are an advocate, and I'm sure that this is, of course, this is a part of that healing journey. So kind of tell us, how did you transition from what is clearly the most traumatic experience that you've ever had to deal in your life? How did you take that and flip it into speaking opportunities, advocate opportunities, and other things that you're doing. Kind of walk us through what that transition was like.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the first time I ever spoke in front of a crowd, I was in college, and I think my mom's coworker was saying like, "Hey, Lysandra, Fletcher play football. My son's team has a big football game coming up on Friday. Do you think he can come and just give the team a pep talk to, just make them go out there with a little extra motivation?" And I was like, of course they asked. I was like, yeah, no problem. So I just go out there. It's probably about 30 or 40 little high school kids. And I'm like, go out there, give it your all. It's might be your last game. You never know. Leave it all on the field. I was literally playing football 3 years ago. Now I'm in a wheelchair. So just go out there and give it your all. Just really not having much prepared, just going out there and speaking like that with my peers.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then after that, somebody was like, "Hey, Fletch, that was fantastic. Can you come give that same little pep talk to my baseball team?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And then I did that, and it was like, "Man, that was fantastic. Do you mind giving your pep talk to like my eighth grade class?" Sure, no problem. And then eighth grade goes to the whole ninth grade. Ninth grade turns into the whole school, and just what now? Hey, it's youth Sunday this Sunday. Can you come speak to the youth? Yeah, absolutely, no problem. I'm just going out there. I'm not really preparing. I'm just speaking from the heart. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
telling what it is, how I felt, what I did, and I started realizing that people were becoming motivated. Man, that was phenomenal. I was like, well, what happens if I actually sat down and like put together a speech and put together a collectively thought of ideas and all that. So I gave an eighth grade commencement speech, and I did that. I wrote something down, and there's pictures of me up there, first time in front of a large crowd, reading from a piece of paper like an amateur speaker, just not really looking up at the crowd. Just you all should go out there and do everything that you can do. Period. Every time I went down to the set, just reading, and then of course, I got to stand an ovation because it was my alma mater, middle school. And I just started. Long story short, I just kept snowballing and snowballing. And then one time, one of my close friends, she works for AT&T, and she says, "Hey, Fletcher, I work for AT&T. We're putting together a like distracted driving simulating course for some schools at a local for some seniors at a local high school." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll be there," because my car crash was caused by a distracted driver. AT&T, the It Can Wait program, pretty, it goes together. So I get out there, I give a little presentation to the kids. AT&T representative gets up there and speak, and they come down and they do the little driving simulators and take the place and not text and all that stuff. And the AT&T guy was like, "That was phenomenal. We're going to figure out how we can work together in the future." I'm like, "All right, cool." And a year goes by, I don't hear nothing from this guy. And then out of the blue, I get a phone call, and he's kind of a fast talking individual. He's one of those city talkers. "Man, Fletch, you ain't gonna believe what just happened to me. Are you sitting down?" I was like, "Chuck, I'm in a wheelchair. I'm always sitting down." You know. He was like, "Well, yeah, So I just got the phone with this guy from AT. I'm a director, right? Fletch, I'm a director. I know a lot of people. Like he's just a fast talker." I'm like, "Chuck, slow down, man. What's going on?" He was like, "Well, I'm a long story short. He's like, I'm a director. I just got this meeting with other directors and the ESPN, and they want to put together a PSA commercial, and they were looking for an athlete, preferably somebody that's been affected by distracted driving." And I jumped on the table and I said, "I know the perfect guy from Memphis, Tennessee, Fletcher Cleaves." And I told them about your story, and they saw some articles and they loved it, and they want to put together a commercial. And once they put that commercial out, the speaking took off. Then
Wow.
it became a national commercial. Then I started getting messages and emails from people in Texas and Florida and everywhere and in between.
What was I mean that's just phenomenal. Again, and this is the testament to, you know, how God moves. He can take what appears to be on the surface a very, traumatic, challenging situation in our lives, and just navigate it and flip that thing in ways and means that you can just never imagine. I mean, I'm sure, or I should say, it had to have been, mind blowing. I can only imagine, the more here you were first talking to, small, little league teams, and, maybe a few school, speeches, like you said, standing there or sitting there with the reading off the paper and that kind of thing. And now you're talking about AT&T and ESPN, and, and you getting, and people need to understand, for those of you, who are listening to the podcast and haven't had an opportunity to really check you out, like you're not just doing random school events here and there anymore, and just the commercial here. Like you on the road, like you're traveling, and not just within the states. You are internationally known for your story. I mean,
Internet's
you are.
known on the microphone.
That's right. That's right. Internationally known on the microphone. That's absolutely right. And you're. I mean, so this whole thing, what was supposed to be, what for I should say, for many people would have been, oh, it's over. No, life's not worth living. I'm just gonna, sulk in this moment.
Hmm.
I'm waving the white flag. I'm giving up. And you never did that.
Never.
You never did that. And you had every reason to do it, but you never did. I'm just gonna keep fighting. Yeah, this is messed up. This wasn't a part of the plan, but I'm gonna keep fighting. I'm gonna keep pushing forward. I'm gonna keep persevering. I mean, that speaks volumes. I mean, people need to understand, the courage, the resiliency that is represented in you and your story, and of course, most importantly, just a testament to who God is. He saved you from
Man.
an accident that could have taken your life, literally, but He said, nope. I need to keep this brother around because he has a message to share with both young and older people, and he's going to share
Mhm.
it not just locally but abroad, and that's exactly what is manifesting itself. So this is just awesome. How you have taken it on, and just what God has done with your circumstances, and again, you've been a blessing to other people. How has that been? I guess speaking of that, how has it been? I don't know if you've had a chance to speak to other people
Mhm.
that maybe who have either heard you speak or perhaps just sought you out that maybe have gone through something similar like you have. How do those interactions usually go? Do you oftentimes get people who have maybe been paralyzed from sport accidents? Or I imagine you would have. Just kind
Absolutely, I
of
get.
just kind of giving you asking, like, how do you do it? Kind of getting your advice. What are those conversations like?
Well, just to take a step back and just talk about, I do want to give thanks. I call God Big G, so I do
Mm-hmm.
want to give thanks to Big G because I could have never imagined my life would be turned out the way it has been, just in a wheelchair. If you would have asked me at my senior year, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Of course, nobody says paralyzed, living in, what? Nobody says that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just crazy how things have transgressed. But I do get those all the time, those questions, because people do see me on TV, and people do see me, in Dubai and Paris and in all these places. And of course, when somebody becomes paralyzed, their first thought is to compare. Is like, okay, don't let this defeat you. I saw this guy on TV. He's paralyzed. You can be just like him. And they
Mm-hmm.
want that, like, all right, get up, come on, we can go. We can go to the. We can still go out of town. This guy is in Vegas right now in a wheelchair. He was just. We can go, and I tell people all the time, you, especially if you're newly injured, it's gonna take time, man. It's gonna take time. I know you want to compare and like that, but number one, every injury is different, and number two, I don't know how physically in shape you were prior to that, but that played a big role in my healing process
Mm-hmm.
because I had left high school 2 days after high school graduation. Like I didn't spend my summer. I would spend my summer training in college. So by the time I got out of high school, I trained twice a day for May, June, July, August, and at the end of August when school started. From that time, from May to August, I had gained 22 pounds of muscle.
Wow.
So like just knowing, I'm thinking I'm getting ready for the upcoming football season, but Big G wanted me to get my body prepared for something different. And when
Mm.
I got to surgery, I had two surgeries on my neck, and I was only in the hospital 10 days. And the doctor, I remember him, telling the nurses, it was like, "There's no reason for Fletcher to be in a hospital. There's nothing wrong with him. He's not sick. He's in fantastic shape. I've never seen somebody at 18 years old this in good of shape. So he can start therapy today. Like there's nothing wrong with him. His blood
Wow.
pressure's fine. He doesn't have any broken bones. He doesn't have any skin. Like there's nothing wrong with him. Instead of him just sitting in the hospital." I was like, okay, so because I was in such great shape, I was only in the hospital 10 days, and I had two major surgeries on my neck. And hearing other people when I got to therapy, talking to other people in wheelchairs, and like, yeah, so how'd you get hurt? A car crash and diving accident or four-wheeler accident, or whatever the case may be. And how long you in the hospital? Oh, I was in ICU 3 weeks, and then I was in the hospital like a month and a half. And I was like, really? And I was, just I was in a coma for 8 days, and then I woke up, and then I'm like, for real? And I'm like, yeah, what
Mm.
about you, Flish? I was like, I was in ICU 4 days. That was like, I was in the hospital six, the other six, I was in a regular room. That was like, you weren't even in the ICU a week. Mm-mm. I was like, how
Wow.
is that possible? I was like, I don't know. The doctor
Big G.
said, Big G, yeah,
That's
G,
how.
yeah, Big G. And but back to your question, people I get up there all the time like, hey, how can my son is in a car crash? He's paralyzed. How can he be like you? How can he do the things you're doing? What advice can I give him? What can I, let him know it's not over. He can still live a fulfilled life. And I tell him all the time, you got to pray and you got to want it, man. You have to want to have a better life. You have to want to not be, this to be your end all, say all. Because I remember when I got home for therapy, I sat home the entire summer and probably like 2 months and before my summer class started, and just sitting there every day and just literally like turn the TV on, watch TV, sit outside, Sports Center. Like it was, I was like, bro, I can't do this. This is boring. I can't do this. And just having that go and watching my friends on Facebook live their because their freshman lives. Going to spring break, hanging out in UC, going to homecoming. Some of my friends pledged early on, and I'm like, that's what my life was supposed to be like. That's what I was supposed to be doing. Instead of sulking, how do you get back to that? Because there's no handbook that says you can't attend college in a wheelchair. There's no handbook that says you can't pledge in a wheelchair. There's no handbook saying you can't do everything you ever wanted to do in life with a disability. And I'm going to defy all odds and accomplish all of those things I've ever wanted.
That is awesome, man. I love that, and like you said, I'm glad you brought that up because people need to know. Yeah, I was going to school, on a football scholarship. This accident happens. I can't play football, but you didn't neglect getting your education. You went back to
Mm-hmm.
finish getting your degree. You still had an opportunity to, like you said, enjoy traditional college experiences, whether it was pledging a fraternity. I know you're Omega Psi Phi.
Mm-hmm.
You did that, and you did other things. You still made sure that you had the traditional college life. You were just doing it, in your chair. But
Yeah,
you were
exactly.
you were just, hey, while y'all may be walking and running, hey, I'm keeping up with you in my chair, but I'm still enjoying. I'm
I'll
still
still be there.
tending to the three. I'm sure you were still tending to the three most important things, which included the ladies. I'm
Oh
sure
yeah,
I'm sure they haven't gone anywhere, even with you being in the chair. In fact, it's probably increased a little bit.
that's what people ask me that all the time, like, especially young men that get hurt. It was like, man, how is it with the leg? Like, is it embarrassing being in a chair? Like, you go out and I can't, pick up my girl or I can't drive. Well, why you can't drive? I got a truck. I pick up my girls all the time. Hey, come on, I'll be there at 8 o'clock. But I tell people all the time, like in college, they don't care as long as you still act like there's nothing wrong with you. Like
Hmm.
if you make it awkward, then it becomes awkward. But if
Right.
you just come out there and how you doing, sweetheart? I want to know y'all ladies looking lovely today. Can I get you something? Can I get you some Taco Bell? You want a burger, baby? Just if you go out there with like great confidence and they don't
Uh-huh.
care, they'll be like, Fletch, you so crazy. Yeah, you cute too, girl.
Absolutely,
But
man, and I love that, man. Your confidence. That's what that was the first thing I was thinking in my mind. Is like, this brother just has confidence. He still has the same confidence and swag that I'm sure you had pre-accident,
oh
and
yeah.
none of that has changed. It's just, again, yeah, I'm just
Mhm.
doing it a little bit different, but I'm still Fletcher.
And I
I'm
wanted
still
to take
me.
hit back what you said about education, man. And I try to hit on that all times, man. Education is so important, so important. You know, everyone out there listening, or with siblings or with kids or whatever. I tell these kids, I go to these schools all the time that father time is undefeated, and your sport will end one day. Like
Hmm.
whether it's you're 25 at the age of 25, you're considered a veteran in the NFL. And think about how young 25 is, right? you know, and just whatever sports you play is going to end one day. And what are you going to do a life after sports? Majority of people won't even make it to professional sports, and even a smaller number makes the type of money that's going to last them for forever. Some people retire from professional sports and buy a car dealership or get a job or whatever, right? So you just have to have the mindset to understand that education is very important. And thankful enough, my parents instilled education inside of me. So when I got injured, even though I wasn't on a football scholarship, they ran my high school grades, the state of Tennessee. I was like, oh, well, he had good grades in high school, plus he has a disability. The state will pay for his school as long as he maintains a certain GPA. I was like, oh, and the GPA was like a 2.8. I'm like, that's easy.
I got that.
I
I'm
got
straight.
that. Yeah. I
And
can,
you gonna pay for it? Oh, I'm
exactly.
good.
I ain't got to worry about nothing. No, and, I took it for light then, but now, have graduated and all my friends are talking about debt. And I remember I got a bill. They withheld my diploma because I owed the library 85 cents.
Wow.
I was like, y'all being paid now. I had to go up there and
85
clean us a
cents.
dollar. Yeah, and give me my 15 cent
Give my
back too.
15 cent right.
Yeah. You want your change? Absolutely, I do.
And I want a receipt.
Exactly. Well, my education is so important. I'm glad I was able to do that. And the state, or just people in general, and I remember feeling um, not embarrassed, but I was upset how people were treating me because I had a disability that didn't know who I was. So I would go to these. I had to take a lot of cognitive tests, as with my disability that everybody has to do if the state has to pay for your school. So I go there and they're asking me, like, yeah, we're paralyzed now, so here's a list of jobs that you may can qualify for, and it was like Walmart greeter, clerk at dope, a hotel clerk, or it might be, it was all these. I was like, I don't want to do none of this stuff. Like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with those jobs, but the fact that you're telling me these are only the jobs I can do because I'm in a wheelchair, I was like, I can read. I know what I want to go back to school. I'm not going to do none of this.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
I want to prove everybody wrong. It was such, it hurt to like, because think about some people that don't have the mindset I have. There's like, oh well, this is all they said I can do, so I'm gonna
Hmm.
it's all I'm gonna reach for. So I guess my life is lays out to a Walmart clerk or you know sweeping whatever. Right? I don't want
Hmm.
to downgrade anybody's profession, but I just knew that it's something that I didn't want to do for the rest of my life.
Exactly. I mean, and that man, that's awesome. I love that attitude, man. Just positive, just and forward thinking. You just like I said, education is important. The fact that you took care of your body the way that you did, how it helped your healing process, but even bigger than that, because you are now speaking on stages and platforms internationally, your workouts that were for football reasons are benefiting you today to just even have the endurance to travel like you do. Because I
Hmm.
can only imagine, and you could speak to that. I saw a few clips about some of what you deal with regards to that, where people are oftentimes asking you about navigating, just being able to travel in a wheelchair, whether it's getting on planes or navigating other things. So just you being physically in shape has had to have been, a big piece of you just even being able to do the traveling that you're doing at the level that you're doing it. Because I would imagine somebody who's not, in great shape and in a wheelchair probably couldn't withstand doing all of that, even if they have this wonderful story to tell.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that
You're right,
that is.
man. You're absolutely correct. It takes a lot because having a disability, you just have to prepare for the unexpected and get to places a little earlier. Where
Mm-hmm.
there's somebody may can run through the airport and hurry up and get to the gate. I have to get there earlier because I go through a different screening process with being in a wheelchair. It may take a little longer, and so just having to wake up earlier for a 6 a.m. flight. Like you may wake up at 4, leave the house at 4:30, and be at the airport at 5 and catch the flight at 6. But for me, it's like number one, I count on somebody to come help me get dressed. So if they're late, I'm late. So I
Mm-hmm.
have to have faith that they're gonna be on time and then take a shower. They have to help me get in the shower. And it ain't just jump in the shower and wash up. You got to transfer to a shower chair. And there's that whole endurance and then them transferring you to on the airplane and then getting in and out of Ubers and then staying up and then still having the energy and the enthusiasm to give a presentation in front of 500, 600 people because you can't get up there and like you've been asleep all day. Like you
Right.
can't tell you've been tired. Good morning, y'all. I'm tired. They're gonna be like, we hired this guy,
Right.
Yeah. And so you got to get, then you have to, I don't, I always love to stay after because people have some, man, that was phenomenal. My son or my daughter, or I'm going through something. I try to listen to these people with an open ear because, you never know what somebody's breaking point is to kind of shun them off. Like, hey, I can't talk right now. I got to go. And I
Yeah.
say, well, even if I can't talk, I say, hey, I can't talk right now. I got to catch a flight, but here's my Instagram. Message me right now. Like, let me see you message me so I know you did it. So, because I'm going to respond as soon as I get to a place where I can. I'm not going to forget about you, bro, or whatever. And that has helped a lot of kids throughout my situation, or adults as well. I've spoken at conferences and sales kickoff meetings and all this other stuff. But it can become overwhelming if you aren't prepared for it. If you don't get the proper sleep, if you don't eat the right stuff or take care of your body. But luckily enough, I had been in shape and it has transitioned over to my disability.
Gotcha. That's awesome. That's awesome. So if you had a chance to, and I know you're not up super up in age, but if you had an opportunity to talk, like I said, to your younger self,
Hmm.
or even just again, just some young people in general, what is your kind of your general overall message that you have for young people, particularly young people who are dealing with disabilities, whether it be well, let me clarify this. Dealing not only with physical disabilities, perhaps, but also dealing with just mental disabilities from the standpoint of limiting what they can do in life,
Hmm.
settling, if you will. What would be your words of encouragement to tell people that, hey, about not giving up, not limiting yourself, not letting, whether it be physical restrictions, whether it be because I came from this neighborhood, because I'm from a broken home, whatever that situation is. What would you like to offer those nuggets of wisdom that you think that people need to know and hear?
For sure. So, in regards to anybody dealing with anything, like you said, whether it's community, disability, mental, whatever, don't let your current circumstances dictate your future. So, don't let something you're going through today dictate next year, or or even next week. Deal with whatever it may be you're going through, and understand that it doesn't matter what happens to you that defines you. People go through adversity all the time. I think you mentioned it earlier. If you live long enough, you're gonna go through something. But it's not what happens to you that defines you. It's how you respond to it. How are you gonna respond when you don't make the football team? How are you gonna respond when you live in the inner city and something don't go your way? How are you gonna respond when you become 18 years young? I mean, 18 years young and become paralyzed. You have to have a choice. And it's going to be a time when you have to make a choice. Are you going to be defined by your current circumstances? Are you going to be the guy that went through it? Like, are you talking about Mike, divorce Mike? He let his circumstances dictate his life. Are you talking about Steve? Are you talking about inner city Steve that be on the drug? He let his current circumstances dictate his future. Don't be that person, and understand that you don't let anyone else put limitations on your life, because you are the author of your own story. And I tell
Mm,
this is what my business is called. I've adopted this saying, is that don't tell me the sky is the limit when there's footprints on the moon. And what
mm,
that means is we've already saying the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit. No, it's not. There are footprints on the moon, which all in essence means there are no limitations to what you can achieve. There are no limitations to what you can accomplish. The only limitations are the ones you impose on yourself up here. You are the only thing stopping you. My football coaches tell us all the time, the person who says they can and the person who says they can't are both right. Which one will you be?
mm. Love that. Love that. And I love what you said about don't get caught up with the sky's the limit because there's footprints on the moon.
There
There,
ain't no
I
limit. And the
love
sky ain't no limit. Ain't no limits.
it. That's powerful. That's powerful. Um, One thing I did want to tap in, a couple of
Mm-hmm.
things before I let you go. Of course, one of the names that you're known by as is the Wheelchair Nomad. How did that come about, and what tell people what that means?
Absolutely. So when I was in college, I've watched. I was my junior year, so I've watched everybody do the Panama beaches and the spring breaks and all that fun stuff. And at this time, I haven't been away from my parents for more than 5 hours at a time, because they've always been my caregivers, and all this of that nature. So I talked up with my friends, and I was like, man, I just want to go out of town. I ain't been out of town in so long. Where I've been has been with my parents. But I think I'm 19, 20, maybe 20, 21 at the time. And I don't want to be with my mom and them everywhere I go. So they was like, all right, Fletch, we're gonna go to Nashville for spring break. And it's only a 3 hour drive from Memphis. My dad was like, y'all can take my truck, have fun, be safe, of course. It was like, yes, sir, yes, sir. So we go. It is five of us. It's my girlfriend at the time, my best friend, his girlfriend at the time, and our other best friend. And so all five of us, we just hanging out, and we get up there, and I'm around my boys, I'm around my girl at the time, and it's just fulfilling to be amongst my friends and just enjoy it. We weren't even really doing much. We were just at the mall, hanging out the movies, throwing Skittles, just going out to eat and cracking jokes in restaurants and just being 20-year-olds. So fell in love with that and with situations it gave me and the confidence it gave me. So I was like, hey man, we got playing this again. So long story short, we go to Nashville again, and then we started inviting other people. So we take a 15 passenger van to Mardi Gras. It's 12 of us, and we take a 15 pack, and it was so much fun. I couldn't even explain. And I was like, yeah, dude, I gotta hang with my friends all the time. Now, of course, I want to be with my
Hmm.
parents no more. I want to be with my peers. So we do Mardi
Hmm.
Gras, then we do Dallas, then we do like L.A., then we do Vegas. And we just started going all these places, and I'm just posting pictures like everybody else does. They posted pictures on Facebook. I'm posting pictures on Facebook. I just so happen to be in a wheelchair. And people started liking and sharing, and like, dude, this guy's everywhere. This dude's been everywhere. He was just in Vegas, and now he in Chicago, and now he in Miami. I'm just hanging out. He on the beach. He riding roller coasters. He's at Six Flags. And I'm like, cool. So I look at my expenses one year and realize all the domestic trips I've taken. I've decided, I've always wanted to venture out, push the limit, so to speak, because there are no limits. So push the edge. And I was like, have y'all ever been out the country? No, we ain't got passports. I said, I ain't got no passport either. Well, let me see how much a passport costs. Boom, got the passport. Let me see how much a flight to Italy costs. A flight to Italy, I'm like, dude, we done been to Vegas, Chicago, Miami, and Houston in just this year. We could have went to Italy, Paris, and London for the same amount of, for the same price. So we put that together, fall in love with international travel, different cultures, different foods, different people, hanging out with different people that look like us from different around the world. Like, black people really do eat French bread, huh? Just so amazing, just being naive, growing up in a city or not having experienced much outside of the United States. So it's like, man, the black people, there are black people in Italy, like, man, this is cool.
Mm-hmm.
And just seeing, and I just fell in love with international travel. So we started doing that. Then we go to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Barbados, DR. And I'm all in these travel groups. I'm in these travel groups. I'm posting pictures. They're sharing it. One post gets like 15,000 likes. And it starts to, and somebody was like, dude, you're everywhere. You're like a nomad. You're like a nomad. And just me being a jokester, I'm like, yeah, baby, call me the wheelchair nomad. And I started tagging myself as the wheelchair nomad. So I kept tagging, it kept sharing across the world, all these groups, all these travel groups, sharing. And this is how I knew it was something. We go to the Taste of Chicago, and we get to a nightclub. My cousins take my chair out, pick me up, put me in my chair, get my clothes situated. I put my cologne on, getting ready to head into the nightclub. And a young lady walks up. He's like, "Excuse me." I was like, "Yeah, what's going on?" She was like, "Are you the wheelchair nomad?" I was like, "How did you know that?" She was like, "I've
Wow.
seen your posts throughout all the like. I've seen so many of your posts. Can we just take a picture? Like, you are such an amazing person." I was like, "Oh yeah, like this is something.
So, yeah.
I'm gonna stick with it now."
That is awesome. That is awesome. And I'm assuming you got that all trademarked and everything. Wheelchair Nomad. Because
Absolutely,
it's
yeah.
the original. So
The original,
nobody's
yeah.
out here
Actually,
perpetrating.
don't worry about it. No, you got to listen to what I know. And it has opened doors, and it made me realize accessibility issues within travel.
Hmm.
And now I'm speaking at travel conferences about accessibility, or hotels are comping me to come grade there. Like, hey, can you show that we are accessible to the world? Like, can you, come be a brand ambassador
Wow.
for us? And it's just different avenues that it's blessed me to be a part of.
That is awesome, man. That is absolutely awesome. Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, before I let you go, I do, of course, want to take this opportunity to, to celebrate you, to acknowledge anything that you might have going on. So please, if you would, if you got any upcoming projects, events, things of that nature that you'd like to share with us, that we can, like I said, we can love on you on, celebrate you,
Mhm.
perhaps, connect with you on, please do. This is your opportunity to share that with us.
Absolutely. So there's two things I'm gonna share. Number one, there is a project in the works. Long story short, there's this tribe in Africa full of disabled kids, and this tribe believes that kids born with disability. This is back in the 90s. The kids born with disabilities were not of God, so they were witchcraft. So they, in essence, killed them. They set them
Mm,
out in the woods and just let them there to die. And that wasn't right. So this lady started a school for disabled kids, and unfortunately, she passed during COVID. So they've been looking for somebody to take on the importance of this community. And some people have, but it's all a lot of Caucasian people out there talking to these group of African American kids, not African American, African kids, um, that look with disabilities. Somebody found my story. They want me to go out to Africa, visit these children, and show them that they can accomplish anything. And they want me to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, be the first quadriplegic of color to climb this mountain, and, in a wheelchair. And I said, of course, I said I'll do it, but we do need funds. We do need preparation. So if you find it in your heart to donate towards this cause, please reach out and we'll get that ball rolling. And also, on a more personal level, the second thing I wanted to mention is that because I have overcome a extreme obstacle, it doesn't mean I'm exempt from adversity. So I am going through an adverse time in my life right now. It has been a financial struggle, so to speak. So if you know of anybody out there who's listening that might need a speaker or who might want to hear my story for kids or go on tour, speaking is a hard business. It's sporadic, especially since COVID. Nobody wants to do a lot of in-person events, so just kind of dealing with that ups and downs and trying to get back in the groove of things. So if you found it in your heart to donate towards my nonprofit, or if you know of anybody needs a speaker, please send them my direction.
All right, and please, what would be the appropriate links or websites that people can connect with to contribute or reach out to you?
Yeah, so if you want to reach out, you can just do FletcherCleaves.com. It has a donate button and it has more links about my story. If you want to know in depth videos of my book, you can get a copy of my book, or you can donate on PayPal at FletcherCleaves@gmail.com or Cash App $Fletcher Cleaves. It's my name for everything.
All right, all right. That is awesome. We celebrate that. Congratulations. You got that's a big deal. Especially
Mhm.
this, your opportunity in Africa. That is wonderful, and it's just another testament to how God is using you to just impact the lives of many. Like I said,
Mhm.
not just locally but abroad in a
Mhm.
major way.
And I had
Um,
to come with coach to myself on situations like this too, because
mm,
a lot of my mentors that are speakers or advocates, they say, Fletch, you're doing, because I do a lot of this stuff for free, like just
mhm.
in the beginning at least. And I was like, Fletch, you missing work, and you doing. I get you want to be a good person. I get you want to help people, but you got to eat too, man. You got to eat too.
Right. Yeah, you
Yeah.
got to eat.
So, and it's like even though I may be going to these places to talk and speak, it just it does cost some money. So if you, like I said, find in your heart to donate, please reach out to me. I would greatly appreciate it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm sure there are going to be some people, God willing, that will check out this episode and will be compelled by your story and want to support you even further. So that is awesome, man. Well, it has been a pleasure, a privilege, and honor to meet you, my brother.
For
I
sure.
have thoroughly enjoyed. This has been by far one of my most favorite podcast moments. This is I've thoroughly enjoyed it from front to back. It has been an awesome journey that you've shared. I have been encouraged. I have been blessed by this, and I know anybody listening to this is going to have the same effect as well from your story. So thank you so much for your transparency, for your
Mm-hmm.
authentic nature, and just being a good, wholesome brother, just keeping it real.
Keeping it
You've
real.
made this on it, keeping it real. And of course you can giving all glory and honor to Big G.
Big G.
So we don't want to leave Big G out. So thank you so much. And for those who have an opportunity to listen to our podcast, if you have enjoyed the content for today, please, of course, subscribe, share, like, comment. Absolutely. And of course, if you want to find out more information about me and my book and services, check me out at blessingsinthestreets.com for more information on that. Um, it's been an awesome time, man. I don't even want it to end, but I know it's got to come to an end. So,
Mm-hmm.
and you're a busy man. I'm gonna turn this day back over to you, and just everybody, just remember that here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is what it's all about: encouraging, empowering, uplifting, sharing our journeys, and letting you know that we don't have to be defined by our circumstances. It's all about the response. It's all about how we're gonna,
Mm-hmm.
proceed forward in those situations, and of course, not forgetting about the fact that that relationship with God matters as well. That all has to come together, and just watch God move and navigate ways in your life beyond your wildest dreams. He is a waymaker all the time. We're not telling you anything that we heard. We're telling you what we know. If you didn't think, if you had any doubts about that previously, Fletcher should have cleared all that up when he
Get
shared
it
his
all
story
up for
with you.
you.
He should have cleared all. Nobody should be confused as to how God moves in your life. So thank you so much, my brother. And just remember, here at the Blessings in the Street podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and where your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Please tune in next time. And until then, God bless. Take care of yourselves and just keep fighting the good fight. We'll see you soon.
Absolutely.